Hello, I'm Natasha. Welcome back to my channel. And today I want to talk about whether NATO could possibly disband, given comments made by some senior figures in the US. It seems that Trump has had calls with Putin, and it is likely that they will meet to resolve the conflict, importantly, without the contribution from the UK or Europe. And I think it is fantastic news that the conflict may be resolved soon. It is absolutely shameful that leaders in Europe have not been calling for an end to this war, given how many Ukrainians and Russians have died since the start of the conflict. About 700,000 or more Ukrainian soldiers have been killed since the start of the war, and since 2022, Ukraine has barred most military-aged men from leaving the country. These European leaders must be crazy not to want an end to this war. And I cannot believe that Keir Starmer is now thinking of deploying British troops to Ukraine. The British establishment once again showing its deceptive, double-dealing nature. Starmer cannot even defend his own border, let alone sending troops to another country. What people forget is that Britain is not just sending money to Ukraine, it is also supporting a lot of Ukrainians in the UK, things like housing and benefits payments. The continuation of this war is costing a significant amount to the British taxpayer. The recent development of this conflict just shows how little importance Europe and the UK have with these matters. They are no longer big or important players in the world. They have been completely excluded in the negotiations, and rightly so. But it is also interesting to note comments made by Peter Hesketh, Donald Trump's newly appointed Defense Secretary, who told allies on his first international trip that the US was no longer primarily focused on European security and that Europe would have to take the lead in defending Ukraine. It seems that the US is now making it clear that it is no longer willing to defend Europe. Does this mark the end of NATO, I wonder? NATO is predominantly a European alliance. NATO allies invest approximately 2% of their combined GDP, and the US 3.4% of its GDP. It's obvious that the US is less concerned now with Europe. It will put America first. It will seek to resolve the war with Ukraine, getting Russia on its side before then focusing on China. This means ultimately that Europe will not have protection from NATO. Given the state of Europe, both militarily and economically, Europe was always reliant on the US for its security and protection. I personally think NATO disbanding would be a great result, since NATO has never been a defensive alliance. It has always been an aggressive alliance. And for those who disagree with me, I urge you to read history and look at the conflicts NATO engaged in Libya, Iraq, the former Yugoslavia. What will this mean for Europe and the UK? Well, Europe and the UK were deluded to pick a war with Russia. Russia being a superpower, one with hypersonic missiles and a significantly large military. If they want to guarantee their security, it seems that they will need to negotiate with Russia. However, I personally don't think that Russia is a threat to European security. If Russia wanted to take over Europe, then why would they seek to end the conflict soon after it started? The peace deal in Istanbul in 2023 was scuppered by Boris Johnson, not Russia. Even historically, Russia has not been pro-war. They opposed the wars correctly in Libya and Iraq, for instance. It is so sad to think that this conflict could have been avoided. All the West had to do was make sure that the Minsk agreements were fully implemented and ensure that Ukraine never joined NATO. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.